So this is like the fourth piece in the collection. I'm gonna talk a little bit about like how I produced it, the inspirations, and just like looking at this final ensemble. And so there are like three major inspirations for this. The first one is a Guo Pei outfit. The second is a painting called The Jewel by Jay Defeo. And lastly, saints, and like kind of how you become a saint. So I went to a Guo Pei exhibit with a friend at the Legion of Honor Museum in SF, and it was amazing. It was beautiful. I was super inspired. Everything was so beautiful and like well crafted. And there was this one outfit that this is like heavily based on, having like these sleeves, like more like loose fabric underneath, this giant stole like garb in front. It's all based on this like one specific Guo Pei outfit that I really responded to, and also kind of had like this religious imagery. And The Jewel by Jay Defeo is like this really beautiful painting that's, I think, exhibited at LACMA. And it's kind of like a giant cross, which is seen here. I think it's very like moving and powerful, not because I'm religious, but because like, which I'm not, but I think it's powerful because I think it's so striking. It's very textured. It's not just like a normal painting. It's it's kind of sculptural in a sense. And I remember seeing that and thinking, wow, this is so striking, and it conveys so much, even if you're not necessarily religious per se. And then finally, a big concept around this was sainthood, and that's because one of the big criteria to become a saint is performing like a miracle, and a miracle is like, a lot of it I think is healing someone, either like through prayer after like all other means have been exhausted. So it has like, the miracle is the fact that like no other solution worked, and it is solely through like your power and like your holiness that you are able to heal someone. And I was thinking one of the thing that I'm healing is myself. A big kind of moving force through this like whole collection in general has been, oh, like life is changing and there's so many things to worry about, but for some reason this time around I haven't felt like as anxious as I normally would be. I instead generally feel calm, a little more rational, and I'm able to take things as they come. And I think like a big reason for that is simply because I like who I am a lot more than than I used to. I think before I definitely defined myself a lot by like what I lacked, and I think that was most apparent when I was single. I think no matter what was going on in my life, I would always look at that benchmark and be like, oh, sure, like you're doing good in XYZ area, but you're single. Like that means no one wants you, and how could you want yourself? And thankfully, like a little bit before I actually started dating, I was starting to kind of distance myself from that thinking. I started to like myself a little more. I became more comfortable with my body, etc., etc. And I think really like being with Jasper, I realized like, oh, like you don't have to be a perfect person to deserve love. Like you can be working and in process, and that doesn't make you less of in any way. And so this outfit is really about my sense of self and how I've kind of come into my own more as time progressed, and how that's going to help lead me into these like next few phases. And so having like these giant hearts on the sleeves, you'll notice this one is tattered because I think it's like, I didn't want to just be like this finished product. I think I am someone who is still working through things. I am someone who is still imperfect, and I think having like this imperfect heart, like this heart that is like has all the material but is not fully formed, and that's still being beautiful and like valued in its own way. Having like these giant waves, I think like symbolizing my ability to take things as they come a little bit better instead of just reacting spur of the moment or internalizing everything every time. And then the cross, like tying back to the saint metaphor that I was thinking about earlier, but also like how in this one, because it's across my chest, it is really like, sure, like you could see the light is coming from the cross, like in the middle, but it's also like it's really coming from within myself this time. And so making this was a whole ordeal. I the only thing I had ever sewn prior to starting on this was a crop top. I like sewed it just so that it wouldn't like wrinkle up over time. And from that experience, I was like, oh, this is kind of fun. Like, why don't I like buy some fabric paint, try to like embroider some things. And I used like all materials that I kind of had lying around besides like the fabric paint and like the thread. Like this is like a pair of Hollister sweatpants that had a huge hole in it because I bought this in high school. I tried repairing this hole in the process and I realized like this is not worth it. I'm just gonna make this on the backside so no one sees it. This is a pair of like Hollister shorts also from high school that also had a hole in it. And so I just like ripped it in the middle. I do like one button in the back and then I just like slung it over my shoulders. And then like the gray fabric is the curtain I used in my like first apartment after college. Since I lived in the living room, I would need the curtain to kind of like provide, I guess, the illusion of privacy. And since I now have a bedroom with a door, I don't use this anymore. And so I think like using like recycled objects in this was important to me because it was like, oh, like it's not that like I'm a new person where like I really changed in like visible ways. I think I just kind of repurposed like thoughts and feelings and my conception of self to like myself more. So taking these things that are a little battered, a little worn down, and just like embellishing them in a way that better fits who I am now. And then I think the big struggle with this, like fabric painting was actually like very straightforward. I was very surprised. I was like, oh, this is actually just painting, so that's great. So doing like the wave patterns on both ends, doing this kind of like cross section, doing this kind of like glittering light outside of the cross section, it was like very straightforward and easy. I was very grateful for that. Doing these, even the little embellishments, is also like fairly straightforward. So that was nice. The thing that like killed me on this was embroidering this heart. Initially I was thinking of doing like both of these hearts like identical, and then as I was doing this, I was like, this is impossible. I watched all of Schitt's Creek, all of BoJack Horseman, and like a few episodes of Death Note before I like finished this. And then I was like, okay, I can't do this again. And also thematically, I think it's more interesting to have this, which was a lot easier to do. But yeah, I had no idea doing like large embroidery would just be so painful. And I'm sure there's a way to do it faster. I just like Googled two videos and I was like, okay, great. I know the basics, I can do it. And I was like, oh my God, it was just so time consuming because like to fill in like all the strokes, all the lines. It was, I'm really grateful for it. I thought it was like, I think putting so much effort into this really shows like, oh, it's kind of like the work on the self. It's like difficult and sometimes annoying, but is like important to do because you want to get better for yourself. And so like, while this does not compare to the Guo Pei outfit at all, the Guo Pei outfit is so beautiful. It was so amazing and like well crafted. This is my attempt at it, and I'm very proud to have like really pushed myself into mediums that I've never worked with, that I'm not necessarily super comfortable with. Because I think that's part of being an artist, and also just part of like being a person, is just like pushing yourself to do things that you're like in the moment, you're inspired, and so just following that intuition. So yeah, this is the outfit. And I'll have another video kind of talking about like the last 2 works in the collection.